Graduating high school is supposed to be an exciting time, right? However, much of my high school experience was pretty tumultuous to begin with. Well, if I'm being all the way honest, it actually started in junior high school, called middle school now, and flared up in high school. I was always an independent child who questioned things that I wanted clarity on. That independence grew more and more as I began to get older. I always had strong beliefs, knew what I wanted, and was making plans on how to get it early on. And that still rings true for me today. I was an old soul. There's no question about that. The flare-up grew from the rules imposed by my parents from being raised Jehovah's Witness. Throughout my teenage years, I was social and wanted to do extracurricular activities and hang out with my friends from school. The answer was always a staunch no. Anyone who wasn't a Jehovah's Witness was considered worldly. I remembered always asking why, over and over and over again. The answer was always bad association spoils useful habits, which is actually a true scripture/statement. However, I never quite understood how bad association could spoil useful habits when I wanted to do extracurricular activities or hang out with friends, but not when I went to school with the exact same kids 5 days a week. I would say that Jehovah's Witnesses needed to make their own schools like other religions if they wanted to ensure that this could be a success. It was this and more that I went through in middle and high school, and I knew the only way I was going to be able to be me and have the freedom necessary to blossom was to move out of my parents' house after high school. I started planning way back then on how to make this a reality. I did not have a problem with my parents being Jehovah's Witness. I had a problem with them making me be one when I didn't agree with it. The rules of the house were that I had to go to the Kingdom Hall, which would be equivalent to church, as long as I lived with my parents. I also had to go to field service, door to door, until I requested to not have to do this. I didn't want to do this anymore, as I thought it would be phony for me to go door to door and tell people about something I didn't agree with myself. There was a lot of arguing for years, mostly with my father on things I disagreed on or things I wanted to do. My father was very strong in his belief and the rules he placed, and I was very strong in what I believed in. Neither of us planned to budge. Things came to a head in high school as I had missed out on all of the prior year's school activities and most of the senior activities at school. However, I refused to miss my prom. That was not going to happen. So I ended up moving out of my parents' house and in with a friend to make this happen. I had moved out for one day to this same friend's house back in junior high school also. That is another story for another video. While at my friend's house, I went to school, worked after school, and had fun with any free time left over. I was finally able to witness what freedom actually was, as my friend's house was very welcoming, laid back, and a free environment. I was able to go hang out with friends and attend my prom just as I always wanted to. I am still so glad that I did that to this day. I had so much fun and remembered the entire night vividly. Other than that, I had some good times and not so good times during the few months that I stayed at my friend's house. However, I always learned and grew from my experiences. I ended up moving back to my parents' house not long after prom as my friend and I had a little rift. It was fine for a wee bit, but the arguments ensued when I started back up challenging my parents and so forth. It didn't make it easier going back to an environment of rules you don't agree with after coming from being in so much freedom. Plus, I had some not so great things happen to me while I was living with my friend in the middle of the fun times I was having. Of course, no one knew about it because I didn't tell my family, as it was my decision to move out and I took responsibility for that decision and all that it came with. Not long after graduating, my father ended up asking me to leave, as he said I was disrespecting him and the house. Of course, I said yes. It didn't matter that I had just graduated high school, nor that I was only making a certain amount of money from my job, or that I had got accepted into college and had no idea how I was going to pay for it, or where I was going to move to. I was just a teenager that didn't hold her tongue and had the personality that if you ask me to leave, I am going to say yes because I'm definitely not going to beg to stay. So I left and I never moved back. I ended up moving with the boyfriend that I was with at the time. That only brought on a whole new set of issues. However, I was at least glad to be out of the house and doing what I wanted to do. This was not how I had planned to leave my parents' house. However, I couldn't go back now, so I kept moving forward on my new road. Now, I realized that it wasn't what I was saying, but how I was saying it. It came across as disrespectful, when in actuality I felt disrespected and misunderstood for years, as I wasn't being heard, and that's what caused my anger to smolder and explode on many occasions. Now I know you can't win against your parents, and the best advice I could give a teenager today is to hang in there, stay calm, and be as respectful as possible while working towards the plan you have for the life that you've always imagined for yourself. Onward and upward. Love, Stacy.